anytime in, like, the growth, when you have your friends being like, "They can't talk to you that way, whatever, whatever," and then you'll, like I don't know, like, anytime I've even thought about entertaining an idea about, like, "Oh, yeah, let me meet their energy," it's always felt awful, and that's just not who I am, so I think that I know for me, like, I will always lead with kindness.
Welcome, CeCe Kelly. CeCe is an actor. That is her profession as a trade, but she is so much more. And I am fascinated by who she is. And I've gotten to know her a little bit through my nieces. So, CeCe, welcome. I'm so grateful you
Thank
joined me
you.
this morning.
Oh, I'm so grateful you're having me. Thank you.
CeCe, I'd like to launch off with people knowing a little bit of how you would like to describe yourself growing up so that they
Mm,
get to know you on a very personal level, not only the actor that they might see in movies and different things, but the person. So, would you
mhm.
tell me about your growing up and how would you describe yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. I have a little here's my little coffee. It has a little ladybug right here.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cute.
I grew up in, Alabama, and I had a really great family life. Um, we had our own, struggles as families do, but for the most part, it was very, very loving and fulfilling. I before I was an actor, I was a cheerleader. Like, my world was very, uh it was pleasant, um, when I was a kid, which I'm really, really grateful for. I know that that's experience that many, many people don't have. I just when I was a kid growing up, or
Yes, and
yeah,
into your teenage years.
and into my teenage years. Um, yeah, I think that I was super everything was kind of bright and beautiful, and, um, I I felt really connected to everyone around me, and it was beautiful, and it was great, and everyone would always refer to me like, "You're always smiling, and you're always happy," and I to an extent, and then, I think that that's really great to highlight what you see in people, but then growing up and obviously just, becoming more of an adult, and then not feeling that way, and then all of a sudden it feels like a culture shock. That's really scary if you're not smiley, if you're not happy, then, like, who are you, and will people still like you? And also in the South, the kind of masking that you put on of being like, everything's okay, Southern belle, people don't talk really about their problems or anything like that. It made it really difficult for me to even open up to my friends, because that felt, like, dirty or dark, and I didn't wanna have those, edges attached to me. So, like, "No, no, everyone likes me being, like, happy and smiley. CeCe, like, that's what people like." I don't know how deep you wanna get into that right
I'd love
now.
to go so deep, honestly, CeCe, because there are
Okay,
so many
great.
wonderful young individuals that will be watching and listening. And we said this before we even hit the record button, how
Mhm.
people put you and anyone else into certain boxes of what they expect. So
Yeah,
I would love for you to really go deep, what it feels like as a young
yeah.
individual for someone to say, "Oh, you're this." But
Mm,
yeah. So yes, please go deep.
yes. Thank you. Yeah, and then that was my life, and then when I was 18, my older brother, Davis, who was, like, my person, like, that was yeah, he was my through and through person, very unexpectedly passed away, and that I mean, y as death does, completely changes everything, and not only was I grieving my brother, but, I mean, yeah, it brings you're grieving what your family dynamic looked like. You're grieving the person you were before, and I think that that was something really I was super frustrated. I was really frustrated that this thing has happened, and I've lost my person. Now I've also lost CeCe, like, I'll never be her again, and felt like I was, like, super dark now and was never gonna get out of that. And I think something that's been interesting about, now it's been 3 years since he passed, and going through that, and now I live in LA, which almost people when you meet people in LA who are also, like, jaded or not also, but who are jaded, unhappy, you can bond over that, and I find that having joy out here, people are like, "Oh, well, you're naive. Oh, well, you just haven't, like, been through anything." And I've had people and it's totally fine, I don't and if it's loud construction, let me know. Um, and I've had people yeah, I've met people and they've been like, "Oh, you're just so, like oh man, you don't even know yet." And there's that thing that in me that wants to be like, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea," but then I remember it's not my job to make people perceive me in a certain way, but I think that learning more about yourself w w it makes perception like, I get really conscious about the way people perceive me a lot. Um, I wanna and especially social media, you want, like, everyone to see every side of you. You want everyone to see that, you're kind, but also you have this depth, but also, like, you're funny and you're silly and you like to have fun with your friends, but then also you're a serious actor, and it's interesting trying to accept all these things about yourself, sometimes we don't want to accept either, um, and trying to grow in that while also having other people's opinions not dictate and be like, "That's who you are. You're this person." Um, it's just interesting about being in your 20s, I think, as well.
It's fascinating that you're saying that, even in your 20s, because there are people, and I'm going to say women specifically, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, that
Mhm,
are still saying those words of attempting to genuinely show up as completely themselves and authentic. And
mm,
people look to make them something that they're not them, or
mm,
it's only a part of them. So I'm grateful that you mentioned the tough portions of losing a sibling
mhm,
and how it plays havoc within you. And it really does take take away a portion of who you are for something new to emerge. How did you, Cece, really? I mean, I can remember back to when my sister passed and we were much older than you were as a teenager. How did you begin to even come out of those emotions for someone that's out there listening that's going through something
mhm,
and is attempting to work their way through it? Could you give me some clues so that someone could go, "Oh, I could do this," or
mm.
I could go through it this way"? Take me through that journey, please, if you're capable of that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I found a lot of solace in art, honestly, in writing, um, a lot of stream of consciousness poems, a lot of very angry, very sad poems, and I recommend, like, if that interests anyone, getting a ukulele is a great place to start to just, like, write little diddles of songs that don't have to be good, but it's just such a free way to express yourself. I found that therapy really helped me. I'd never gone to therapy before, and I know that there's as much in this as we are in this new age, there still is a stigma around it, or just this thing. I mean, even for me, I knew I felt also this thing of like, well, I don't wanna, I can do this too, mind over matter. And it's so funny because then you kind of surrender that, and talking to someone who is completely unbiased was so helpful. Someone that wasn't a friend, because friends are amazing, but sometimes at the end of the day, all a friend can do is just be in the dark with you and say that they love you and be in that space with you, which is so helpful, and that was also so helpful. But having someone who didn't know me, didn't know my brother, didn't didn't lose anyone either, wasn't trying to figure out the right things to say, like, someone who was really just so focused on me, CeCe, was super helpful. I mean, especially when it is a sibling, and then I'm not only am I thinking about what I'm going through, I'm also always thinking about what my parents are going through, because that, is really unimaginable, truly, watching them and trying to imagine what that would be like and wanting to be there for them. So I think having someone be like, "I love that you care about them, and I love that you love them, but, like, I wanna talk about you. We're here for you," and that was hard because I found myself even during that wanting to be like, "And how are you? We're talking a lot about me." And they're like, "Yeah, that's the point." Um, that really that really helped. I think, it was really difficult to even believe it to an extent, while simultaneously trying to diminish the experience by being like, "Well, this happens to everyone."
Right.
And I think trying to balance, because it's interesting. You're like, this is so earth-shattering, but also this happens all the time to people, and it'll continue happening to me. It's weird. So I think journaling really helps, all those big thoughts. Um, Trying to just give grace was huge. Giving grace to myself. I At the time, I was dating someone also who was able and had the capacity to just like pour into me and give me so much love and really helped me be like, I loved you then, I love you now, and like it doesn't change what that looks like, while also helping me understand with therapy, like I am different than I was. Um, and it still is, I don't think I quite have advice on how you learn to fully accept that the person you've lost won't be here. Uh, I thankfully was able to be around a lot of my brother's friends, which was really helpful, to see pieces of him and his friends, and I'm sure for them also seeing it in us. So I think overall, just like really understanding like it is different now, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's over. That doesn't mean that all life ends. It is different now. Give yourself grace with that. Let yourself grieve all of it, what you thought your life was gonna look like also, and sit in that. And the person I was dating also would just try to help remind me, like, whenever you're having a really hard feeling, try to sit in it, 'cause I did not wanna do that. I always ran to my phone, social media immediately, just a pacifier, 'cause it all felt so overwhelming. I was like, "No, if I get into this, like, I'll never stop." But then I found that the times and even still that I do let myself experience that heavy emotion, I feel more connected to Davis. I feel more connected to my grief. I feel it feels cathartic in, a painful way, but after not when you go into numbness and you don't feel anything for a really long time, feeling something, anything is nice. So I think just give yourself grace through that, just it's hard.
Did that event have any impact on you making the choice to move to LA?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to come to LA because I had known of some friends out here like Yasmin and Rosa and the whole Fletcher fam, and being being in the house over COVID and then being in the house after COVID, because so my brother, he was in vet school, and my sister was in college, so both older than me, so they all came home, we were all in the same house for COVID, and seeing that and feeling that stark difference and the emptiness of the parallel, where it was so, so heavy that yeah, I really wanted to get out. I also get out meaning, like, not like, "I gotta" well, sometimes I felt like that, and I was like, I gotta get out." Because also my friends were all gone, they were all at school. There was, like, just me and my parents, and my sister was working then, so it was, like, just that, which is also, I think, was really helpful, but yeah, definitely moving to LA, oh my gosh, has been just amazing. On like, being around people who love me and I love them, and everything feels new, like a new day, which is really exciting. Um, it's also, of course, tricky being so far away from families. My family's back in Georgia now, and, it also is interesting being friends with people out here who didn't know me before I lost Davis and who wanna be here for me now. Um, but that also, allows me to rely on myself more too, because it's like, okay, well, it's kind of just me out here that fully knows that experience for myself. But it's been really just I feel so grateful to be here. It's been amazing.
I'd like to know how all of that experience and those deep emotions, how do you channel that into your acting? Or do you even?
Mm,
Does it enlighten you as an actor to show up even stronger on the screen and in the roles? What has that done for you? And again, I ask these things to get to know you, but for someone who's going through something,
yeah.
to understand that there are things that, even though they're very tragic, they tend to do things for us that nothing else could have. So how has that
Mhm.
enriched or didn't enrich your acting?
That I think that's still I mean, that's still something I really try to investigate because, well, one, in my acting, because also in my human life, so then therefore, naturally in my acting, it I think helped me understand characters in a different way than before. Because losing someone is a very normal thing in regular life, so it's a really normal thing on screen as well, which is tricky because sometimes it feels too close to home and a wall comes up and you don't wanna do it. Um, like, your brain is like, "I don't wanna do that." But I think that in times when even if it's not losing someone in a script, if it's just something where it's a tough event that's going on. My body remembers that and remembers muscle memory, what that feels like, and then also I think allows me to be more present in scenes now, and with this I don't know, the word depth sometimes is like a weird it's like depth, but so maybe enrichment. I like how you said that. It feels more whole and enriched. Um, but I mean, like, after I think it was almost a year after, um, Davis had passed, and I was filming something where there were a lot of scenes that were really triggering, and that was really, really weird because I hadn't confided to anyone on set. It was just me, like, my, parents weren't with me or anything, and that was tough trying to navigate that because you, like, lay it all out there and you're crying and all that stuff, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, like, wow, you really went there," and then you have to be like, "Yeah, yes, I did," and, like, trying to sensory, be like, "And I'm back, like, I'm acting." Um, because obviously when you're acting and you're using a real emotion, not an imagined something that you're picking at that scab, you know, to open it again but I definitely you know, it has been enriching. I have a hard time fully diving into it still because it is painful, of course, whereas other people do that totally, and that works for them. Um, it's interesting because you also are like, "Am I dishonoring the person for my own,
Mm.
personal art?" It's weird.
Isn't it fascinating where our mind goes and how
Mhm.
judgmental we could be
Mm.
in simply being
Mhm.
present?
Mhm.
But I find you fascinating because you go into topics and you dig deep into emotions that is very refreshing in someone young.
Mm.
You're in your early 20s, so you have a wisdom and a depth about you that is completely fascinating. How did you learn to start to go down that road? Because again, I know people that are
Mm.
in their 50s and older that still haven't gotten to the point of really learning to understand who they are. How did you go down that path, CeCe?
I think that well, thankfully, my parents always led with love and created an environment that allowed for that. Um, I started acting when I was really young. I started acting when I was 9, doing theater. So I was always kinda, uh I was interested in being introspective, even if it looked different, when I was 15, of course, than it does now, but I was always interested in that and interested in other people's lives so much because of acting, and then I think natural just, like, curiosity. Um, that that's a good that's a really good question. I think acting really helped that, um, because starting so young, I just naturally wanted to know more about other people and myself. I had an acting coach that I used to train with when I started with him when I was 13, and a lot of his teaching was figuring out yourself deeper because how are you gonna play a character if you don't even know yourself? So he would invite a lot of exercises and activities that dealt with, like, really digging deep, which is interesting for an acting class, but I totally see how it translated, so yeah, I think because I was young starting those things and also knowing always that I had the privilege of having my parents to go back to, I think that doing a lot of personal work is really so scary and feels so isolating if you don't have anyone that you can, like, text after or call because it's just you, and I admire people who try to do that because that's hard.
You said something very profound, that digging deep
Mm,
into your own self
mm,
is a tough journey to uncover
mm.
and really figure out who you are, and to even face those things so that you can move forward and begin to adjust. So thank you for saying
Yeah.
those things. Um,
Oh,
there's so many things that I'd like to ask you. I think I'm going to ask you honestly, what does it feel like to be an actor? Because
mm,
I'll add,
mm.
I'm going to ask that, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to ask next after that. In my thought, where that went. What's it like being an
Oh gosh, my mind went in, like, 40 different places.
actor?
Immediately, I was like, "Ah, it's the best." And then I was like, "Well, yeah, sometimes." Um, I mean, I think being an actor is so fulfilling and creatively challenging and beautiful, and diving into stories and diving into characters is, oh my gosh, it transcends. Being in the industry is is another thing. Being in the industry is just, you know, any creative industry you're in, like, it's hard. It's hard in the sense that isn't, I say hard, I always think of Denzel Washington has an interview where he's talking about, he's like, "This industry is not hard." And he's like, naming other jobs that are very difficult, and I completely agree. So, it's obviously, we're not doing, like, laborious, it's but it is the mental game of, why am I still doing, I love this. I thought I knew what I was doing, but it's not, why am I not hearing anything? And, like, the constant, you have to keep getting yourself back up, which I also think is why friends are paramount. Oh my gosh, having friends that are able to, like, it is like, me and my best friends who are in the industry or not, but especially who also understand it is a constant, like, one of us is down and we'll pick each other up again and over. And I think the weirdest part to remember is when you're an actor and it feels so um creativity based and art based, and then you remember the industry is a business, and they don't always align. Like, you can be the best actor for the role, but you don't look right for the role, so it won't be believable. So they have to pick someone, it's a million things, but, those 2, because when they feel totally different is really frustrating, but, I love it, I still love it. I'm still I'm so excited to be here. So, yeah.
Thank you for differentiating the actor from the business of making
Right.
films and making all these sitcoms and different things, that people
Mm,
sometimes miss that it is a business, and it's totally
mhm.
reliant on incredible actors as you, but the person that's running it is looking for their profit margins, and how is that going to turn out. So a lot of actors do
Yes.
have a very challenging time understanding the two. I'm grateful to see that you do understand that. But I find acting in general as fascinating, because you jump into roles and you need to become that for that role,
Mm,
for it to be a good role. Yet in real life, you're a completely different human being. And my fascination with that is, as humans, we get to play lots of different roles. And you kind of alluded to that earlier, where people attempt
Mm,
to say, oh, Cece's always smiling. Cece's always happy.
mhm,
So her life must be incredibly perfect. I'd love for you
mm.
to go down that path and give me your thoughts on that.
On as people in general when we do that,
As
or in
yes,
specific to acting?
for
Okay.
you, for you as an actor and as a person.
You're so fun to I just love chatting with you. This is so so fun. You're so inquisitive. Thank you for asking me these things. This is really fun to think about and engage in this way. Um, have you read The Four Agreements?
Yes.
Have you read that book? The classic. I read it this year, and, I mean, it really sticks out so much to me, the the agreement that nothing is personal, the agreement that nothing is about you, um, which I think is so oh my gosh, when I start to really think about that, it eases a lot of tension, but I think, like, people are gonna people are gonna paint you however they paint you because of whatever they've experienced, because of their childhood memories, their opinions, that it is the same thing that you could, yeah, you could meet the kindest, most wonderful person, but there's that thing in you that feels jealous or insecure, so then you paint them as like, "Well, they're this, they're this, they're this." Or if you're someone who feels really miserable and then you meet someone else who's really miserable, then you're like, "I love them. That's my person." That it's really not fair to try to guess how people are gonna interpret you either, because to do that or to try to change how they think about you, you would have to rewire their brain, which you can't do, of course. Um, and I think even with acting, that's it's so interesting how subjective it all is that you you watch an actor do a role or take a certain role, and someone might think they're so fearless for doing that. They're such a fearless actor, while other people look at that and they're like, "I cannot believe they did that." Like, they ruined their career. And so it's the thing again where I think I don't know how you completely drop everyone else's opinion and you're like, "I think that this is what I'm doing, so I'm gonna try to do this." Um, but yeah, you just really cannot I mean, everything in life and then also in acting, like, the art feels so personal, and then the business is so impersonal, and also everyone else's opinions about you, for the most part, unless you're, like, kind of doing something to offend them on purpose, but in regular life is also impersonal. I mean, I love the thing in the Four Agreements that's like, if even someone's ability to be kind to you is just a reflection on themself, like, that's their capacity to be kind to you, which I just love that I forget who said this, but, the saying of, "No matter if someone says something good or bad about you, it's not about you." Because, of course, when it's good and you're like, "Ah, thank you," and then that one bad thing, you're like, "Oh my gosh, whoa, that ruined me." So that's a really weird thing, I think, of to practice that, you know?
How well do you do with that? Not taking things
Mm,
personal. Because it's been a fascinating journey for me too, to learn and to
yeah,
deepen that belief and that thinking that nothing is about me. It's only
mm,
that other person's journey. And I remind myself of that continuously. And I tend to say
mm,
it to others. So, how well do you do with that? Especially in this field that's
sure.
constantly judging you.
Yeah, right. Um, I think that honestly, moving out to LA and being around people that like, it being around platonic friendships that love me unconditionally, that also isn't familial, the, like, truly chosen people that are like, I love it when you're this, I love it when you're this," um, I think has really helped me on the journey of trying to relinquish the fear of what other people think of me, because I know that at the end of the day, like, well, I look at these people that I love and admire and respect, and they also feel the same way about me. So, like, maybe things are okay, and, having my friends who are bolder than me, when I'm like, "Yeah, and, yeah, I just this happened, and they said this, and so I don't know if I did something wrong," and just immediately being like, "No, no," like, "Girl, look into this. No, you didn't," and then I'm like, "No, I just, I don't want them to think," and they're like, "Girl," and I think that that is really helpful, because my first instinct is to be like, "Okay, well, how can I mend this? How can I fix this?" And I think the unfortunate process of being like, "Oh, hmm, not everyone has great intentions for you." Um, and where I used to also blame a lot of it on ignorance, I'm like, "Well, they didn't know." It's been an interesting thing being like, "Oh, I think they did know, and it's not my fault." Because I've looked far deep into it and, come to the conclusion that it's not. So, uh, I think the more I remind myself, like, what are the truths I know about myself, and I have, like, 3 maybe that I can think of that I'm like, "Those 3 I know are true, and no one can take those away." That if someone else challenges those, as much as I will reflect on that and really think about that, I'm like, no, but I do know that I know that those are true, because I constantly am checking in with them, so I think that helps.
What are the
So
3
I'm not great
truths?
at it,
What are the
yeah,
3?
I
Would
know.
you share those?
Whoa,
If you're up to
yes,
it.
I will. No, I think that one is kindness. Um, I know for myself, I will, and always is a big word, but, like, unless it is something that is so much reason that you wouldn't be, well, I don't know. I will always lead from a place of kindness. I will. I'm not gonna do anything with malintent. Um, that's not who I am. That's not who I wanna be. Anytime in, like, the growth, when you have your friends being like, "They can't talk to you that way, whatever, whatever," and then you'll, like, I don't know, like, anytime I've even thought about entertaining an idea about, like, "Oh, yeah, let me meet their energy," it's always felt awful. And that's just not who I am, so I think that I know for me, like, I will always lead with kindness. Of course, if there's someone that is an awful human being, it won't I've been trying to be braver about standing up for myself with that, but also while finding what the balance looks like for me of what setting boundaries looks like. But, because kindness, I think, also doesn't mean, like, you know, I don't think that you have to be nice to be kind always, or friendly if there's someone that you're like, "I don't wanna engage with them." I think kindness, I think going along with that, I would say being as genuine as I can be to who I am is something I really hold true. I really care about authenticity in myself. When I'm talking to someone, I really wanna be as genuine as I can be and as authentic as I can be, and, um, yeah, that's something else that if someone was like, "I just there was something." So, okay, this is a little jump back. Earlier, when I was saying that, sometimes in LA when people are, I can't remember if we said this pre-call or on the call. when I was saying that in LA, people will attach sometimes who are more jaded, and then when someone is joyful, that they'll be like, "Oh, you're naive," or "You're this or this." That in in the industry, sometimes when I would be talking to, like, other people, um, I don't know, that I would meet in the industry, I would feel like, I wanna let them know that I am, you know, dropped in. I wanna, like, put that part of myself out that, like, I'm a real, which is so silly, actor, whatever. Um, and then this year, I was kinda like, "You know, while that is a part of me, I'm gonna lead with, like, whatever is super genuine in that moment." And if that person doesn't connect with me, like, that's okay. I am someone that I get really excited to see my friends. I get very excited to meet new people. And while I've seen the look in other people's faces when I've been like, "Hi, nice to meet you," because I feel that, I genuinely feel that, and they're like, "Whoa." I think reflecting on, like, but that's their perception of people like that, you know? But if I don't wanna change how excited I get to meet new people by being like, "Oh, I'm gonna show them like, I'm just, like, super," you know? Because what's that? Then someone else could be like, "That didn't connect with them either," you know? So you never know, but, I think being genuine, and then a third, oh gosh, mm, I think being these kinda all go together, I guess, but, like, really genuinely caring about people, I would say, um, and if I'm inquisitive about you, it's because I really wanna know. Like, I'm not just trying to, I don't know, like, I think that everyone feels really, really lonely, and having like, forgetting that humans are humans is really interesting. Um, you know, when you usually sit down with someone and you're connecting and you're right here, right now, you're like, "Oh, that's what this is all about." Um, and so that means a lot to me. So I really wanna do that. I really wanna connect with people. So I think we just discovered my my 2 truths. Yeah.
I love those three. They definitely show in who you are from the times I have had the privilege of actually
Mm,
seeing you and being in your presence. You definitely share those things through your energy. And I love to go down the point of loneliness
mm,
because you're in an industry that people think is glamorous and they don't
mm,
see the reality of there's lots of downtime in between projects sometimes. There's lots of
mm,
time for you to be by yourself doing other
yeah.
things. So, how does loneliness fit into the whole career and you being so genuine?
Oh, um, I think it's sometimes, talking about this industry and, like, complaining about it, oh, I think constantly feels, um, privileged, honestly, because 'cause you're like, "Why am I complaining about this when this job is," you know, like, when you again, like, when you were looking at what most, I mean, that's a whole another rabbit hole, but I say that to say that I find it hard sometimes even, like, opening up with my friends about, like, "This has really been trialsome right now," or, like, you know, talking to my friends being like, "This has been a really slow month for auditions, and I feel discouraged." Because, you never want your friends who are in the same industry as you to then, you know, you don't wanna put them in a weird place of if they've been having a really amazing month, you know, you don't want them to be like, "Oh, no," which, of course, I know at the end of the day, like, they don't. They love you and they wanna be there for you, but so I think reminding myself of that when I do feel really lonely, when I do feel discouraged, that I can go to my friends or my family, 'cause you definitely feel discouraged and lonely, and, like, is any of this even worth, you know, what projects I wanna be doing, especially sometimes when you go through a slew of auditions that you don't feel passionate about or connected to. You're like, "Oh, this is just draining," and then you do get the one that you're like, "Oh my gosh, amazing," and then you psych yourself out, and then there's the whole spiral of, like, "Really?" and self-shame, and, um, so I think that within the loneliness, just something that has helped me is talking to my friends, when I do get past the, like, "Oh, I don't wanna," and then, you know, having my friends, again, sometimes be like, "Girl," I'm like, "What are you talking about?" One of my friends literally, she'll just be like, "Shut up, shut up," when I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, enough," which is really helpful. Uh, so talking to my friends and also, like, sometimes I watch tapes that I did when I was younger, um, and that is really helpful 'cause I look at little CeCe who's doing the same thing now that she was doing then, and, I feel really proud of her and the work that she was doing then and the journey that she's been on, and I think that that really inspires me to keep going also, 'cause I looking at her and being like, "I got you, like, we're still doing it," and if for some reason, like, that's not what I end up doing in the long run, like, we'll figure it out. Um, because I also think that sometimes you can hold on to a dream too tightly when the universe is trying to be like, "Hey, have you thought about this?" And it's also not great if you're blocking that, so I know for right now, this is what I wanna do, and I feel really passionate about it still, because now I've been doing this for, like, 11 years, so, um, yeah, I think reminding myself of how far I've come, and that helps too.
You know, you hit on something for me. For you to be doing this for 11 years and you're
Mm,
in your early 20s, how did you
mm,
even go, yes, this is the path I'm going to take
mhm.
at such a young age? Do you remember what that felt like for you to go, this is it, this is the one?
Well, sorry, wait, I'm trying to do the math. Has it been maybe I was anyways, I'll do that later.
You were 9
Um,
when you did your first play, you said?
so sure. So I was as you said, I was like, "Yes," and, um, uh, yeah, honestly, I mean, I always loved, like, playing imaginary games with my friends, and, my sister and I would record little skits and stuff when we were younger, but and my parents also, while no one else in my family's in the industry, they would love to take us to plays and to musicals and movies. They've always loved that. So I was exposed to that when I was really young as well. I mean, my, like, memory of this when someone's like, "How did you get into it?" My memory of this is that I was watching TV one night when I was 9, and I was like, "Yeah, I wanna do that." So I got on my mom's laptop, and I typed in, "How to be an actor." And then, like, every scam imaginable pops up, and I clicked on a link, 9, barely can operate a computer, and I was like, "Hey, mom, it's asking for your credit card number." And my mom was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." And, and of course, it's like, "Come to this hotel and pay $1,000." And so my mom and dad looked into regional theater, and they got me in that, and then I did my first play, and then just loved that. Loved it. Oh my gosh, loved it, loved it, loved it. And then when I was 11, I did To Kill a Mockingbird, and I played Scout, and it was, like, the biggest show I had done, at the biggest theater I had been at, and that whole show and the director of the show, 'cause that direct he believed in me so much, which kind of made me be like, "Oh, wait, like, could I do this actually?" Instead of this being like a fun thing I do, and so there was one film and TV acting coach in Alabama that we could find, and she was near us, and so I started doing those acting classes, and then everything kinda went from there. I got an agent and a manager and went from that, but I definitely recall doing To Kill a Mockingbird, and I think also doing stuff like that, at a young age also really taught me so much about even the I mean, I think about it now, I'm like, I could not possibly have understood the depths of that show, but the director, he treated me like a full adult in the sense of, like, he talked to me about it, and, like, of course, like, me and my mom, like, um it wasn't, just like, "Yeah, and then just, and say it like this," or whatever. It was super important to him that I understood the gravity of the show, and which I think also living in Alabama, like, brought on this whole lens that I am so grateful for, of empathy and wanting to understand people, so I think that that was really pivotal, being like, "Oh, I can do this, that's fun." Yeah.
You know, as an actor, you get to portray so many different individuals.
Mm.
What do you think makes you a great friend?
Aw. I think that makes me a great friend, is what you said?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I I really, really care about my friends. I care about my people. I think that something I really love about myself, and I think a lot of this did come even more in depth after losing Day, is how I feel like I'm able to connect with them. So much like my friend will, and I know it's like empath, but more than that, because I love and I care about them. Like my friend will be upset, and I'm like I feel like I'm right there with them, like crying with them, not overshadowing them, of course, not being like, "Ugh, I know it's hard." Um, but I believe in my friends so much. It's, oh my gosh, and it feels easier to believe in your friends than it does yourself sometimes, which is really helpful then to have your friends who believe in you so much. Because I could, like, write, oh my gosh, essays about how much I cherish my friends and how amazing I think that they are. Um, so I think, yeah, I think I just really genuinely deeply care about them. That's the kind of friend I am. Sometimes and I have friends that are like this, and it's not like me, and I'm so grateful I have friends like that. The friends that are if you're like, "Yeah, like, I was seeing this boy and, he did this," that they're like, "He's done. We hate him. He's done. He's over with," which is not the type of person I am, and so but it's nice to have a friend that backs you like that. Whereas, like, I would be the friend that, would be so interested in like you do when you're like, "I wanna hear more about how that made you feel." Um, but I think it's helpful to have both. Yeah.
Have your friendships changed through the years in what the kind of individuals that you seek, not you seek, that you end up
Ooh,
being
yeah,
around? Has that changed?
definitely. Yes. I think in the past, I would kind of well, one, growing up and you're like, "These are all my friends that are at school, so these are my friends." And I'm so grateful I still have some of my best friends that I've known since elementary school who are I adore them and I love them so much, but, um, being like, growing into adult and really picking your own friends where, like, you don't have to be friends with them, has definitely made me really, really think about how I feel when I am with them and how I feel right when I leave them. Um, has been really insightful, like, my friends who I love being around, I find that even when I'm in my car after, I'm like, I'm energized and I'm so excited and I can't wait to see them next. And when I'm with them, I feel like I'm my whole self, but I'm also my best self. Um, and and it's just been really apparent that sometimes friends who I will leave and I'll just feel a little bit more, like, okay, yeah, yeah, no. And I think that that's okay to have friends like that too. I think that you can have a bunch of friends, but the ones that I keep very, very, very close, I've really tried to listen to my body more and, which has been really, really helpful because I think sometimes you don't fully understand it, and then you're like, "Oh, that's right." So it has changed, yeah.
If I gave you a magic wand and
Oh,
you could jump into the future 5 years from now, what would
mm.
you like to tell CeCe in the future about CeCe today?
What would I like to tell.
Your future self about who you are today.
Oh gosh. I think if I was being super truthful with
Mhm.
them, um, I think I would say that I felt like I was in a really great state of change, and I could viscerally feel it all the time that I was changing and that I was learning, growing, unlearning, um, and that I was really open to receiving, um, and trying to give myself grace throughout all of. And a lot of times, I didn't really know what the heck was going on, but that was okay because I was just in it, present with it, and I was figuring a lot of stuff out. That's probably what I'd say.
I asked that question on purpose that way because a lot of people will ask,
Uh-huh.
well, who do you see yourself 5 years from now? It's like,
Yes, I thought that's where you're going, and I was like, "I have no idea."
but I get the most authentic answers when people show
Mhm.
up and really say what they see themselves at
Mm,
right now, so that when they look back in the future, they go, well, look where I was. Look where I was. Look where I
totally.
am now.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
gosh, there's so many things that I'd like to say and go through. Right. Let's see. We talked about the most deepening and challenging thing that you've gone through.
Mhm.
What is the most fascinating thing that you've gone through that has
Gosh,
made you the CeCe that's here today?
fascinating. Oh boy.
And
Um,
fascinating is an interpretation of what fascinating is.
for sure, for sure. Hmm, that's made me. I'm not sure if I can pinpoint something exactly, but what comes to mind is, I this is I don't know, this is just coming to mind, so this is what's happening. I, when I was 17, I did a movie that was my first time being, like, number 1 on the call sheet. So it was the first time I was like, "Whoa, this is," and there were several leads in the movie, it was kind of an ensemble piece, but the adults that were in the movie were, like, very great seasoned actors, and the other young people that were in the movie were also great actors who were so down to play and show up. And I think the it was such a beautiful culmination of, like, imposter syndrome kicking in, being like, I think they made a mistake." And then showing myself that I was capable of so much more than I even thought I was, um, acting-wise, which was so cool. Because in life, the more that you show yourself that you're able to show up, that you are able to trust yourself more, so that was really cool. Um, I I also on that set, like, fell madly in love and, was with that person for a few years, and it was all of these things that added together to make me be like, I can be the professional I wanna be. I am able to, like, fall in love. I, um, am able to create really deep connections with all of these adults and also people my age, and navigating all of that, and feeling so fully myself that I could come to set and find that balance of being, like, so, like, silly and letting whatever those feelings come out, and that was so fun, and then also knowing that I would had the capability to then switch in and, in an hour to this really dramatic scene after, so that I think of that being something that I reflect on a lot of that was a time when I fully showed up as myself, and I felt very confident in that. That I wasn't also, like, going onto a set when you're leading it brings a level of confidence too, because also everyone's gonna be, it's funny, I've worked crew on, uh, a couple of short films, and you see the way that, like, you to the actors, you're, of course, so nice to them because 'cause they're the talent. Um, and so, of course, when you go to set and at the time, I was like, "Everyone is so nice," and I was talking to a girl that was a PA after the shoot, and she was like, "Everything was falling apart, but you had no idea." And I didn't. I had no idea. Everyone was really dandy to me. So, yeah, I think that I think about that experience as being something it's like, I was fully myself, I showed up, I worked really hard, I'm super proud of that. That was nice to reflect on.
What roles would you love to play and why?
Mm,
Like, is there something that you go, gosh, if this
yeah.
script comes along,
Yes. Oh, yeah. The ones that really come to mind are, a role like Timothée Chalamet in Beautiful Boy. Have you seen that?
I have not.
It's it's about, based off of a true story of a young young boy, he's, maybe in high school, a little older, and he becomes addicted to meth, and it's about him and his father and their relationship. And it's actually based on a book that they wrote together, the father and son. Um, and then also a movie called Winter's Bone with Jennifer Lawrence that, she did early in her career, and that one is really intriguing because they were, it was really, really gritty and really raw, and they were out in the woods, and, her father is missing, and then she has to find him. But the types of roles that I'm super, super drawn to are roles that the character is going on an emotional journey and an emotional arc. Um, I just I love that. Like, of course, it'd be so fun to do. action movies and, Disney princess, like all of that stuff. Oh my gosh, yes. But the stuff that, like you said, when you're like, you see something, you're like, I have to do this, are things where the character is going on an emotional journey. They start one place, they end up another. And also, I think that so many great, great stories can be described in like a sentence. And that's where a really great writer comes in and a really great director and a great team to infuse that story. Because sometimes when you're like, and then this happens, this happens, this happens, you're like, whoa, whoa, which is fun sometimes, of course. But yeah, I would love to do something that you just get to like fully explore that. I think would be so fun.
Why does that speak to you so much?
I think that's a great question. I think that speaks to me so much because you have the ability to make it feel so intimate
Mm.
and really personal. And I think because of that, that's why the audience watches it and they connect. Um, Glenn Close has a quote where she says something like, or is it Glenn Close? Anyways, the audience doesn't come to a movie to watch the actor, they come to see themselves. And I love that. And I think that that is what's so cool about storytelling is you're able to feel something that you can't really describe. Um, and when it does feel so personal that you're really able to let the audience in. So I just really like that. And I think working with your scene partners on stuff like that too is so cool because it invites so much intimacy and so much like it demands that you're present, which is so cool. Also, when you don't have to worry about like, great, now you're gonna be on wires and there's a huge green screen and which again is so fun, but I think that that's really cool.
CeCe, if I put you on a stage in front of a whole lot of high school kids that are getting ready to graduate within the next year or two, what would you love to get a message across to them that
Mm-hmm.
they could get? Is there one?
There definitely is. Honestly, my first thought was, I love your questions. I like I'm learning so much about you as well, the way that you're asking. So thanks for having me on. Um, I Gosh, yeah, there's so much, but I think that to high schoolers in specific, something I would like to say, and I guess yeah, this would, of course, I know what the experience is like being a woman, but I think it could apply to everyone. What we talked about earlier, but just really pushing the like, as you change and as you experience new things and that starts to naturally change who you are, let that in, invite that. It's okay. Like, it is inevitable that you're going to change. It's inevitable that you're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing, and that's okay. Like, you have time, give yourself grace, journal if you can. It feels really weird starting to journal, but once you do it, it becomes a real place of safety. As you're wanting to figure this out, like I recommend therapy if that is something that works for you, if that's available to you, friends, but throughout all of it, just breathe through it. It's gonna feel really hard sometimes, and it's gonna feel like you're spiraling, and it's gonna feel really confusing and lonely, but then also sometimes really exciting and so unknown that you can't wait, that you are growing up and as you're being like, I'm an adult now, and now that I'm an adult, I want my parents more than I've ever wanted them before. Like, just invite all of that in, sit with it. Um, because it's gonna be different and that's okay. Doesn't mean that you are, you know, even though you feel really lost right now, like you're just adding stuff on. You're creating more of a, painting of who you are. Like you're getting more complex, but that's natural. You're human. I think I would want to say that.
I definitely would love to send you out on stages in front of young
Oh,
individuals. I would.
oh, thanks. I would love that. I feel really, really passionate about that, especially with young women in particular, who I think that there's a lot of, I mean, also though, now high schoolers are so different than when I was in high school. And I know that's what everyone says, and I'm not that far out of it, but I think that with social media, there's this entirely different added pressure of being something that you think you should be.
Actually
Um,
go down that path. What would you say
mm,
to women and young
to
women?
those,
What would you say to them?
I would say that I would say something like, that feeling when you're scrolling for a long time and you put the phone down and you sit and you look up and you have that thought of like, oh, wait, this is real life. I've been in this vortex for so long, like, but this is actually, um, my battery's on 10. I'll get a charge in a minute. But I would say that that feeling is something that feels more rare now, which is interesting because it's interesting that the norm is scrolling. Um, I, who when do you really like who you are? What are you doing that when you're doing it, you're like, I really like that girl. I really like her. Is it something when you're laughing with friends? Is it, when you're being creative? Is it when you're organizing something you're like, I really like her. I really like the way I feel when I'm hanging out with that girl. And then I would say to look into that because w- it doesn't matter if you look like if everyone else thinks that you are, that you look the way that you should look. If you don't feel fulfilled, like none of it doesn't matter. Like when do you feel really fulfilled? When are you excited? When are those moments that make you happy? And look into that because everything else comes and goes in trends. It's all trends. I'd probably recommend for agreements. Um, especially like everyone's perception is because of how insecure they all are. I mean, the amount of times that you think like, oh, I can't leave the house. My hair looks awful. I cannot go to this party. And then you go and no one cares because everyone is worried about how their hair looks, which is something people say, but like it's true. You are your own main character in your own life, and that's how everyone thinks. So no one is worried about that. And if they are any type of way towards you, it's because that's how they feel. So like really, when do you feel great? And like look more into that, you know? Maybe something like that. There's so much I would like to say to the youth. Me too. I'm a youth.
That's a great one. CeCe, what is something that you may not like about yourself still that you're working on? Would you share something that's true for us?
hmm Isn't it so funny when you ask also, you're like, what do you love about yourself? You're like, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to say that. And then you ask, what don't you like? And you're like, ugh, I'll tell you. Because that's more comfortable to share, which is weird. But I think that I still carry a lot of fear. I think I base a lot of things I do out of fear. Which also it can the result of it can look fine. It can look nice. I will hang out with someone that even if I'm super exhausted because I fear that they will think that I am flaky. I fear that they'll think that, and again, that's going into how they perceive me. I don't like that I operate so much off of fear, and I've also been really trying to get better about unlearning shame and shoulds is a big one. I operate with a lot of shoulds, and it's tough. I find it really difficult. That's why it's so nice to have friends that don't operate from a place of fear, and even I'll check in and I'll be like, "Hey, do you think I talked too much when we were, there?" And they're like, "No, but also, who cares?" And I'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe it's not that deep." Um, and I think also, like we talked about earlier, being in the industry and being also a woman in the industry, I think that there's this interesting pressure to be strong, but be humble, and I just recite the
Mhm,
Barbie monologue,
mhm,
but really, I think that there's this interesting thing when you see someone being interviewed and someone's like, "You did s like, you were amazing." The immediate response is like, "Oh, like, thank you, that's so kind." Versus you talk to a professional athlete and you're like, "You did amazing tonight at the game." They're like, "Thank you. Thank you. I worked really hard. Thank you. Yeah, I did that." Um, but I think trying to, again, like, yeah, like, relinquish the fear of perception and also, um, just, like, the what ifs. Like, well, what if it was fine? What if no one cared, really? Because at the end of the day, I have my 3 truths, and I know those to be true, then everything else is kind of doesn't matter as much, like, who cares? That's really hard for me to just be like, "Who cares?" Because 'Cause I'm like, "Ugh," you know? But I think that one, I'm still pretty fearful, I'd say.
if your best friend was sitting here and I asked her, "What do you love about CeCe?" What do you believe
Um,
she would say? Or he, or what do you believe your best friend would say?
I think that I think also if I gathered, like, you know, my closest best friends, I wonder what they would all say differently, but the one I'll think of for this example is, I think she would say that I have a really big heart. Um, I think she would say that that's what gets me into a lot of really beautiful situations, and then also what gets me into not great situations, and, um, I think she would say that I really care about people, and I really do want the best for people, and, I believe in them, and yeah, it's funny. I think someone else would say that I lead from a place of love, um, because, yeah, when it's towards my friends, then it's so much easier to just be all about my friends. That's funny.
What do you admire the most about yourself?
Hmm. I admire I admire how much grace I continue to give to myself and invite all of me in. I'm looking at my vision board right now, and the top thing on the top left is "Make room for all of you." Um, and I think that that's something that I really admire that I strive to do is I let myself be all of me. I strive to do that. Sometimes I don't, it's harder to remember, but and then what that the causes that come after that, is that I will want to talk to someone for a really long time because that's this nature in myself, or this or this or this. But I the older I get, yeah, try to take the boxes away, and I admire that because um it's not always fun to do that. Because then as you're unpacking everything, you're like, oh wow, uh-oh. I didn't know I still had that. I thought I'd given that away. Like I thought that was gone. Uh, so yeah, I think that I really do try to breathe into that and see what that looks like.
I'm going to ask a question that's going to be a little bit on the heavy side.
Yeah, yeah.
How much do you feel that there is still discrimination towards females in this
Mm,
industry, like feeling less
mm.
than male counterparts as actors? Do you even feel that?
Yeah. Um, I'm curious what it will look before I answer. I'm curious what it will look like when I'm in a position where I'm like fully seeing if there if the like the pay gap and things like that. When you're like, why is it that we're both series regulars and things like that? But for right now, what I can speak on is from my experience. Um, I think that one, there's so many amazingly talented, driven, hardworking female actors. There's such, and I don't want to say oversaturation, there just is. There's so many. I mean, I look in my category and I look at even all my friends and I'm like, you guys are so freaking good and so hardworking and so gifted. And then, just the way of the business is like, then because there's so many, like you sometimes you don't see results. Whereas, and it's just kind of how it is right now. I think if you are like, if one of my friends is like, I kind of have been thinking about acting, that's a guy, like, do it because you will book, you
Mm.
will work. They will be so excited that you're here, um, because you're rare. You're more rare that there is. Also, if you're a little bit talented, oh my gosh, you don't even have to be that talented to be, I think, like, not to make it big, but to get in the rooms. I think like you're such a hot commodity. Um, I think that there's an interesting thing of the acting that's praised when you're like, this is an amazing performance. And a lot of the times it's like men yelling really loud,
Mm.
which like yes, absolutely. But you look at that and you're like, that is acting. And then sometimes you look at the performances that are praise of women and that you're like, that's amazing. And it's like, really kind of quiet strength and vulnerability in that I had a conversation one time with someone that it's just one of those conversations that you're like, wow, I we have totally different viewpoints. Um, he was saying that pretty it was hard to believe in one of the more recent Star Wars that Daisy Ridley's character, Rey, was doing all this stuff, like all this action stuff. And it's funny because he didn't even think he was being any type of way. He thought he was being super, like, just truthful. He was like, it's just hard to believe because, like, that isn't stuff that women would be doing. That's
Mm.
why, like, when you watch men do stuff like that, you're easier to hop on board. He was like, women have their own stories where they have their own type of powerful, but it's different than men. And I said, Well, do you think that's because for so long it's been reflected that these are women's stories and these are men's? And I agree that there are experiences that are like singularly female. I think that Barbie does a great job of depicting that. But I thought that was so interesting the way that media has kind of, yeah, for someone to be like, it just like that's so unrealistic. And then you're like, buddy, this is Star Wars. Of course it's unrealistic. What are you talking about? So I think that that's something too. I think that people um, get upset when they see women playing like super action-based characters that aren't super sexy. Because if they're super sexy, then it's like, okay. But if they're just doing a lot of like really intense stuff, immediately, not immediately, but sometimes people will be like, I just don't believe that. It's like, well, why not? Like, it's happening. You're watching it, so why not? So I think that is something interesting, just about, and I think we're also seeing it from the opposite. I think we're seeing storylines of men that show a lot of really delicate vulnerability, and I think that Moonlight was a beautiful example of that. I think showing this art that we don't get to see portrayed of men that often. So it is it's interesting to see what type of media is out.
Let me switch it up to what is next for
Mhm.
CeCe
Oh, just in life and
in
everything.
your career and in life. What's next for you, do you think?
It's a great question. In my career, I don't know. I I feel really grateful that I have been. So some of my friends are who are on the writer director side are accomplishing really amazing things, and I feel so grateful to know them as people and also as creatives. And I think that as as my friends and I age, naturally our careers will grow, and I'm really excited to see us all working together. Um, I don't know. I don't have a practical next step, auditioning and um, I think, yeah, just keeping myself creative when I'm not. I just moved into a one bed alone, which is really exciting, and um, it's been so fun every night being like, what movie am I gonna watch? Like, what are these things that I really want to look at, or being able to, I don't know, read like scripts out loud in my living room and stuff like that. But and then I think on a personal side, with also living fully alone for the first time, something that I've been really looking at is um even like decorating my space fully for me. What does that look like? So I literally like I was like, okay, I want my couches positioned in this way so that when I have people over, and then we can do this and that, and then it becomes this thing where you're like, what about me? What is good for me? And what do I like looking at? What makes me feel happy? So so I think that's a really big personal thing. And also just probably doing a lot of stuff alone, um, and letting that be really fun. Like, I forget sometimes that I live in LA. Like I can do so many things here. But then I think I'm like, that's an hour drive. But whatever. And like going on museum dates alone and things like that to really, I think, deepen the connection with myself while also um fighting the like perception of other people, you know, being like, yeah, I'm here alone, I'm here at the restaurant alone, I'm doing these things and finding my own comfortability in that, I think will be a really cool thing coming up.
CeCe, what's the best place people can actually follow you or find you?
I I would say my name is CeCe Kelly. My Instagram is CeCe Kelly _ I I'm really just on there, if I'm on there. But, yeah, I know that I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on and for creating such a really safe and vulnerable space. Um, this has just been so lovely, and thank you for asking me so many questions that make me really think and deepen that, and I've just enjoyed this so much.
I really do appreciate you. You're wise beyond your years, and I
Mm,
really do appreciate who you are and the time you take in learning about yourself. What is something that I might not have asked you, Cece, that you go, I wish Rima had asked me this. So before we even end this, is there anything that you go, I'd love
mm.
to still say this?
Oh my gosh, I've said so many things. Um, hmm, I think we said so many things that if you were to pull apart my brain and that's what would be circulating right now. Um, I think the one thing that has been interesting in the being alone has been what it looks like to be fully single, um, just in all of that, and how because of my friends and my growing standards in myself, and also the unconditional, again, platonic love that my friends show me, what now I look for in someone else, and it's been really, really awesome and fulfilling to be so just, like, in love with my friends that you're like, literally, Jasmine and I have talked about this. We're like, "I don't know how a guy is gonna add up, because now that I've experienced what these super strong female friendship looks like, that, like, you believe in them 100%, you hype them up 100%, you listen to them, that we're like, "Yeah, I don't know, good luck." But it's been really nice and has felt really freeing to be like, "Oh, I have so much love around me. I have so much love around me, and I give so much love also." Um, that when the times, of course, come where you're like, "Oh, it would be really fun to, you know, have a romantic person," that it's just so nice because then you're like, "Oh, but I have, like, my friend," and also I have really great guy friends as well, um, but the just sacredness of female friendship. So I think that that's been something really cool that I've been discovering also, and that's why I'm another reason I'm so grateful for my friendships, oh my gosh, that show me, like, someone needs to love you this much too, to be with you like this, so that's been really cool.
Cece, again, I really, really love and appreciate who you are at your personal
Thank you.
level. The actor is wonderful, but the human being is fascinating. And I thank you for it.
Thank you. Aw,
And,
thank you so much, you as well.
and to our incredible viewers, please remember your attitude always determine your altitude in who you become in life. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us.